So in this video I'm going to show you how to do a single crochet stitch into a chain, so into the first row of my stitches. And you can see, so I've got my hook, I've got my crochet chain that I started out with, and normally that loop would be already on my hook. Okay, so just have a little look at our chain for a second and have a look at these. I'm just going to show you a little bit closer. So have a look at each of these stitches. So each of these V's is a stitch that we will normally go into and make a single crochet stitch. And what you need to see, you've got this loop that's on your hook, and you need to be able to count the loops. So that's my first one right there next to my hook, and then that's my second one, my third one, my fourth one, and so on. And when you're starting out, it's a good idea to know how many stitches you're starting with, to know what you should end up with. It can help you from missing stitches at the beginning and at the end, which sometimes people can do by accident. So normally when we're making a single crochet, what our instructions are going to say is that we should start in the second chain from the hook. So we're going to start in this one here, so not that first one, this second one. And what that allows us to do is to create a kind of little corner. So we're going to make rows, so we need to be able to get around the corner here. So we're going to start in that second chain. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hook into that second chain. Now you can put your hook here, so under that one loop of the chain, so that you've got one loop, or you can put your hook here, so underneath that bump, and then you will have two bits of the chain on top. So to be honest, it doesn't really matter which way you do. They create a slightly different edge. So if you use the method where you put it here and you have two loops on top, it's going to give you a smaller edge. If you use the method where you put it under one loop like this, you're going to have two loops on the bottom. So it really depends. For some people it's slightly easier to go underneath one loop, so I'm going to show you that method first. Okay, so let's just go back to the beginning again. So first of all, what I'm going to do, put my hook into that chain, so into there. Then, just like if we were chaining, we're going to grab the yarn, so hook facing upwards, yarn goes over the hook, hook facing downwards, and then I'm going to pull it through that stitch. And now I've got two loops on my hook. And I'm going to do that again, so I'm going to grab the yarn with my hook facing up, put the hook facing down, and then I'm going to pull it through these two loops on my hook. So 1 and 2. And that is my first single crochet stitch. Now let's go back and have a look at my chain. So my stitch is in that chain there. So my chains were quite loose to just show you exactly where you need to go. So normally my chains would be a little bit tighter than that, so I wouldn't end up with this big hole here. But it's just a bit easier for me to show you exactly where I'm going if my chains are a little bit looser. So this is my next stitch here. I'm going to pop my hook in there, and then with my hook facing upwards, the yarn goes over my hook, turn my hook so it faces down, and pull it through that stitch. And then as I pull it through, I also turn my hook upwards so that my loop doesn't fall off. So if I don't turn it upwards, then the likelihood is that my loop is going to fall off. So in there, yarn over, pull it through, and turn my hook up so that my loop doesn't fall off the end. Yarn over, turn my hook down, pull it through those two, and then turn upwards at the end. So if you just have a little, I'm just going to pull my hook out there so I can show you. So now I've got my two stitches. So that was my first stitch, that's my second stitch. And I can just carry on down my row, down my chain. So putting my hook in there, pull it through, over and through two. And that's my next stitch there. So put my hook in there, with the hook facing upwards, yarn over, hook facing down, pull it through, hook facing up, yarn over, through two. through 2 and then turn my hook to face up again. So I can just carry on down the row. Sorry, I'm just going to speed up a little bit because I want to get to the end and show you the next row. Okie doke. Maybe I should have done a fewer stitches when I was doing the demo to get to the end a little bit quicker. So single crochets are the smallest stitch that you'll do normally when you're crocheting. So there are also double crochets, half double crochets, treble crochets, and so on and so on. Each of those stitches is taller than the previous one. If you're crocheting, so single crochet is the American terminology for this stitch. In the UK, these stitches would be called double crochets, just to confuse the matter. Okay, so now I'm nearly back to my first chain. So when I get to the end here, so this first one here was my slip knot originally that I started my chain with. So you can see that it's got a knot at the end, and it may be slightly tighter than the rest of your chains. So just be aware of that when you're going into it. Okay, so there is my row of single crochets. So you can see that on the top there are these V's, and if you have a look at the stitches, so you can see that this is my chain at the bottom, so those kind of little wraps at the bottom, and I've got my V's on the top. So I'm just going to go ahead now and turn my work around and work into the next row. Okay, so I turn my work around so that my work that I'm working into is on the left. If you were left-handed, it would be the other way around. Okay, so I'm just going to I'm going to put the yarn around to the back because I pulled it out. Okay, so then I'm going to go into my next row of stitches. So this is what it looks like if you're single crocheting into a stitch that is already there, so not into a chain. So what you need to look for is the V's on the top here. So I'm going to chain 1 because I need to go around the corner, and then my next stitch is into this here, this V. And what I'm going to do is put my hook underneath the 2 bits of that V. So both parts of the V need to go under my hook. And then we're going to do exactly the same motion. So yarn over the hook, turn my hook facing down and pull it through those 2 and turn my hook so it's facing up. Put my yarn over, turn my hook facing down, pull through 2. And that's my first stitch into the next row of crochet. So it goes in here. This is my next stitch now with the 2 V's. So my hook goes in here so that I've got the 2 bits of the V on top of my hook. So yarn comes through those 2 and then turn my hook so it's facing upwards. Yarn goes over, turn my hook facing down through those 2. And you can also see that I'm holding the work right underneath the stitch between my thumb and my middle finger. That's just to keep everything still so that things are not moving around and flipping around. It just helps to keep everything really straight. So my hook goes in there, I grab the yarn and bring it through, I grab the yarn and bring it through the 2. And I'm just going to go ahead and get down to the last stitch, so through there and there and there and there, so that you can see really what the last stitch looks like on the row, because sometimes that last stitch can sneakily kind of curve around the corner, so I want to show you what it looks like on that last stitch. Really should have done fewer stitches and I could have gotten to the end a lot quicker. Dum da dum dum dum. Eventually we will get there. Okay, so I'm nearly there. So now I've got 3 stitches left. So that's 1 and that's 2. And what I want to show you really is that that last stitch has a tendency to kind of curve around the end. So if you can see there, that is still a stitch there that I need to go into, but that V is really curved around, so don't miss that last stitch. It's actually there, and sometimes it can be a little bit tighter. So there we go, and that's my last stitch in the row. And when you're starting out, it's a good idea to count the number of stitches that you've got. So to count how many stitches you've got at the beginning and at the end, so that you know that you're not losing anything at the beginning of the row or at the end of the row. So the way that we can count our single crochet stitches is to look for the V's on the top. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I've got 15 stitches in my row, and that is our single crochet stitch.